Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
I've got probably a bit more of a broader question, just by what I've been feeling over the last couple of months. It feels like there's a bit of a shift occurring at a global level. I guess there's two parts. Can you put a little bit of a definition on what's going on? But the other part of that is a large part of our population are not really wanting to see truth at all.
Yeah.
Well, maybe consciously anyway, and
yeah.
They're not exhibiting it.
Yep.
I get pretty angry with that.
Yep.
It's not. It's more the consumption and the lack of people wanting to do anything because they're controlled by other stuff. I just find it really difficult to deal with.
Yep. Well, let's look at the second question first, because it's more personal. And so we said, right, the anger is at the top. So people are consuming, they're not seeing what they're doing, and you feel, the feeling that you have is quite upset about that. So how many of you feel that, like quite upset about what's going on the earth? What, you know, these quite a lot. So it's a common emotion, isn't it? So what would that anger be covering, do you think?
Fear.
So it's covering a fear. What's the fear? What's the fear, do you think it's covering?
Loss of control.
It's helplessness.
Not in control, yes.
A feeling of helplessness?
Yes.
But let's draw it down to something a bit more personal, because it's my anger that I'm feeling.
We're hacking into our future, which is
All right, so keep going with that. So if they are hacking into your future, how does that feel?
Well, it doesn't make our future very good. Our future, I guess.
Well, let's now personalise all this. Because all of our emotions, this is something, see, one thing we're being taught to do with a lot of the New Age stuff is to depersonalise our emotions. Now, my suggestion is if you want to progress on the divine love path, you will need to personalise all your emotions. Because that's what it means to own them. They're all inside of you, right? So this anger is inside of you. It's not caused by someone else outside of you. Even though we think, oh, they're raping the land, it's caused by the people raping the land. No, it's not. It's caused by something going on inside of you, this anger.
It's triggered by people raping the land.
It's triggered by people raping the land, but it's not caused by that. The cause is actually the emotion inside of you. Remember, this is all about what's inside of you. Inside me. Always look inside me. Right? So let's go deeper. I'm angry about those things. I feel some fear about my future. The fear about my future is?
It's probably going to be short-lived, so
how does that feel?
Well, yeah, I want to be able to experience life at its fullest. So.
Right, so you feel like your life's going to be cut short. You're not going to be able to experience things completely. All right, now let's rewind even deeper than that. In your childhood, how did you feel about your life being cut around and moved around by other people?
Well, probably at the top level I was just pretty easy with it.
Yeah.
But at a deeper level, it hurt a fair bit.
Yeah, there's a deep rage inside of you about your childhood and how much you were oppressed and put in a box and controlled by everyone else, and the things you had being taken away from you. Right? And that's the emotion you need to feel. When you feel that emotion, and there'll be a lot of avenues, there will be a lot of little, like you could say, little tentacles to that emotion. Yeah. And once you feel all that emotion and its tentacles, you will no longer get angry when somebody's cutting down a tree right in front of you. Yeah, and ironically, someone probably will never cut down a tree in front of you, because your law of attraction at the moment is you need somebody to cut down a tree in front of you to trigger this emotion. You follow me?
Well, that solved my problem, because I get distraught about clear belly and stuff, but it goes back to mother. Because I see the earth as the mother, the thing that sustains us. And now you've gone through that, and it's gone back to my childhood, because my mother was one of those ones that was subservient, because that was the way it was. And of course I didn't grow up subservient. I mean, I came out kicking all the way through my life. And so that's interesting. And we live on property that we've protected. And we've got a swathe through our property with a water pipe which doesn't belong to us, and they came and cut down the trees to have it. And look, I just went out and cried because, and now I know why.
Exactly.
And I'm feeling that emotion, and it's about my mother.
That's it.
Yeah, thanks.
And if that emotion was gone, they probably would have chose somebody else's property to put their water.
No, sorry, the pipe's there.
No, they would have. I mean,
The pipe's already there, and there's got to be a certain amount past the pipe.
But they would have chosen another property to do it with, not yours.
I was there when we went there. So perhaps I went there to deal with my mother issues, you see.
Perhaps.
Who knows?
You attracted it though, either way.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I guess like the second part, which like chopping down trees and stuff, I am quite used to that. I'm more, there's a deeper thing that's going on for me in awareness of what's going on the earth.
Yep.
Because I mean, I personally believe, and I, see this is that currently, even us sitting here, the way we live is unsustainable.
Exactly.
For our birth.
Exactly.
And we do need to make a massive change for us to be here for any length of time in the future.
Yep.
Which I can deal with that.
Yep.
Well, I might not be able to do it very well.
Can I just answer that part, and then we'll go on to the other parts that you want to ask?
Yeah.
Every
see a shift in the feminine is what I was going to get to. Yeah. So
everything that is happening right now to the earth is unsustainable. Certainly. And the question we need to ask ourselves, though, is what do we change to make it sustainable? Now, the answer that many of you will probably think of is, we could do this thing, and we can do that thing, and we can do this thing, and we can do that thing. My answer to you is, you change your soul, and everything will change around you automatically. So if you change your soul and the soul becomes more loving, and the way you change your soul is release the parts of it that are inside of you that are not loving. If you release that, what will happen is automatically every single thing around you will automatically begin to change. And all of the attractions will change, and everyone's consciousness will begin changing as well as a result of your soul changing. Right? You won't have to go out and do a protest, right? Because what is a protest? It's an intellectual expression of your... And what does that create? More... And in the end, does it work? It hasn't, has it? You look at it really honestly, it hasn't. If you change yourself inside of yourself at the soul level, you change your feelings and emotions, welcome. You change your feelings and emotions inside of you, what will happen is automatically everything around you will begin changing. Now, you'll notice this a lot, again, going back to children. When a parent changes their soul condition by releasing a causal emotion, the children around them, and whether they're adults or not, it's immaterial, the children around them change automatically. They automatically change. And
can I just ask a question about that?
Mm-hmm.
About parents.
Can I just finish answering that question though? Because what I'm getting at here is most of the time what we do with what we're seeing around us is we see it as what's happening external to us. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And many times we look at them cutting down a tree or clear felling or whatever they're doing, and we think that is actually external to us, but actually our soul condition assisted the creation of that. And if I release my soul condition and make it into another type of condition, that my soul will no longer have a part in creating that. Right? Now, to give you an example, if my soul has an anger in it towards clear felling, I am actually creating more clear felling. Right? Because what do I need to trigger that anger? I need someone to do that in front of me, right? And once I get to a point where I no longer have that anger and rage inside of me, and I've dealt with the underlying emotion, which was going to be related to a childhood emotion about my future, or scared about things taken off me, or lots of other types of childhood emotions that happen and are created that I don't experience, what if I release those, all of a sudden, people who are doing the clear felling will actually start looking at why they're doing it. And that will happen automatically without me having to protest or without me having to do anything else. Does that make sense? I know it sounds like, no, that's not going to work. How, you know?
Because you're not attracting it anymore.
Exactly, you're not attracting it anymore. And
the energy you're putting into it when you're really feeling angry and fearful is no longer there because you've got your energy for love or whatever else.
totally. Remember, I think I said in the introductory thing that here's our soul, right? I'll constantly say, what is your soul? Your soul is your passions, your desires, emotions, yep,
Intentions.
memories, intentions. These are all part of your soul, right?
Feeling.
Now, if my intention is to fight somebody every time I see something happening that's wrong, if that's my intention, I'm determining firstly that it's wrong, so that's me making a judgment. Then I go down the track of fighting them because I'm now putting what am I doing now? I'm putting all of my passion and desire into opposing things. But what created that thing? My own soul condition of something even deeper within me that I'm actually not facing. That's what created that thing. And collectively we all create in this manner.
Could I just interject there for a second? You mentioned collectively. At the moment, there's a lot of angst in Tasmania with tens of thousands of people objecting to guns and the Forestry Commission, or whatever they call it, over here. Say if one single person, say any one of us here who's feeling particularly angry, changed their soul condition, you've still got another 19,999 people who are wanting to tear guns to pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, is that just going to mean that, before your first DVD, I used to think you'd go into another dimension where guns wouldn't exist, but now I'm rather confused now.
What will happen is that if you change this soul to the point where you're actually at one with God, every single person in Tasmania will know automatically that you're in that new condition. And you'll be able to do things like healing, you'll be able to do things that people from all around will just flock to you for your advice and they'll flock to you. That's what will happen. And they'll flock to you not because you're anything special, but because you're now connected with God and you're in harmony with God so much you're now at one with God, and God can now channel all of her energy, God can channel all of her thoughts and her feelings through you. Right? Now you imagine yourself in that place. Do you think that the other 19,000 are going to listen now?
Well, they might not know it though.
They will know it, for sure. How did a movement begin from a single man in the first century to change the world, really, in a lot of ways? Right? How did that begin? From one person. So they'll know. And you imagine if there's 10 of you, or you imagine just 20 of you in that condition here in Tasmania. The effect is going to be so enormous. The effect is that once you get into a one-man condition with God, every single person on this earth, whether they're aware of it or not, will know. Right? And they will be drawn to you or repelled by you, depending on how much truth they want in their life or how much truth they want to avoid. But it's your soul that is the powerful thing. So if I'm having this anger, and I'm one of 20,000 people having this anger, and there's one less person now having the anger. Now there's only 19,999 having anger, obviously.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better effect. But if my soul was in a one-minute condition without this anger, that compensates in many cases for millions of people in a different state. Right? And so it's important for you to understand that you might begin the journey, deal with one emotion, and you might just see a little bit of change around you. You might see your children change a bit. You might see the work situation change a bit, and so forth. And then you deal with another emotion, you see this bit change and that bit change. You deal with another, and before you know it, what's happening is the sphere of changes around you is getting bigger and bigger with each emotion you release. that make sense? That's what happens. Now, have it saying, well, if I don't start that process, I'm hardly having any effect on someone else. Well, that's true right at the beginning. What you're saying is true right at the beginning. What's one less person than 20,000? Not much. But if one doesn't start the process, will the others ever start it? Like, you've also got to look at it that way too.
So what you're saying is slightly different from the 100 monkey syndrome.
Yeah. The most powerful things that have ever happened in the world usually have come from one person changing. You think about that.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah, like you think of all the
Nelson
powerful
Mandela.
things that have happened that have affected you and affected the way you think and affected you on your spiritual journey. How many of them involved like 100,000 people? Most of them, didn't they involve one person? You think about it. And while the 100,000 people doing it is fantastic and you feel lots of joy about that, it's the one person generally who inspires you, isn't it? Interesting that, isn't it? So you can all become inspirations for everyone around you. In the same manner. So understand that this is your soul, this is the real you, this is the power you have. When these passions and desires and emotions are exercised in disharmony with God, then you're going to create some very negative things in your universe, which happens to also be mine. Right? And if your passions and desires and emotions and intentions are harmonious with God's love, you're going to create some very powerful things that are going to affect me in a powerful way. Whether I'm conscious of it or not, it'll affect me. Something to think about.
Are you saying that harmonious emotions are more powerful than disharmonious emotions?
Totally. And this is like every person who's in a condition of closer love to God. So in other words, in a better condition of love, has a far more powerful effect on the world than people that are in negative conditions. Like, I'll give you an example. And all of these people I just mentioned that inspire you. Does a murderer that you see on death row inspire you?
No.
You hear about it, don't you? And you think, but does it change your life? Not really in most cases, does it? It doesn't inspire you. So who had the most power over you? Wasn't it the person who acted positively in their life and taught
And the love, yeah.
and reflected love in their life? Wasn't that the thing that had the most power over you? Yeah. Love has a lot more power than any negative experience.
I think of Mother Teresa sometimes and all her good work.
Yeah.
Mind you, there's a lot of just everyday people. Think about Jane McGrath with breast cancer. I mean, she inspired many, and that was through love.
Exactly.
It would have had to have been. I mean,
Yep.
they're everywhere in
And
our
yet
society.
you even compare her with, say, a murderer in Queensland that you've never heard of and you've probably never think of, give a moment's thought right now. But she has inspired you.
Yeah.
What about on the other side of things then, if there is another side of things, whatever I'm trying to say is that there's somebody that is supposed to be the most powerful person in the world for a couple more months at the moment, and he doesn't really inspire me, Mr. George Bush. So I'm wondering, like, he is inspiring a lot of people, but I'm just wondering, is it because they're not in truth that they're inspired by? He's done that kind of.
He's inspiring very few people.
Yeah.
Well, how many of you in the room are inspired by George Bush?
Well, they voted for him for a second.
Oh, true, but I've been to the US many times, and there's hardly any people in America who think they're inspired by George Bush. Yeah.
But they wouldn't leave their country.
Well, a lot of Americans are inspired by their country, not by a particular person. And even that has its own roots in some very severe emotional injuries.
I was going to say they've done a fair bit of crap in your name.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot, and that applies to every country, not just that country.
But it is in Australia as well. It's got rather bad history.
Yeah. So yes, a lot of these people who are in power have nowhere near the amount of power that you believe they have. Right?
You see right through them.
Well, we give them our power in the end, don't we? Like, how many of you, like, you think about the government you're under right now here in Tasmania, like, how many of you automatically give your power to them because you feel you can't do anything else. If you did something else, you'd be put in jail, or if you didn't pay your taxes tomorrow, what would happen to you? So what's driving some of our emotions? Fear. Yeah. Imagine if all of us all of a sudden started to decide differently. So we all decided, no, I'm not going to pay any tax anymore. Let's just make that one decision. Do you like that one? Okay, well let's agree to not do it anymore. Now, let's say 10,000 people in Tasmania decided to do that. Just 10,000. What's the population here now?
Nearly 500.
500. So we're talking about, what, 10,000 is about, what?
490 something.
How many percent? Just a couple, maybe a percent. Let's choose a percent.
But if everybody did it, it'd be fine because we'd have a good time in jail. Because there'd be lots. We'd have.
You haven't got enough jails to even put you all in.
No, true.
You haven't got enough courts to even process you.
Yeah.
You think about trying to process just 10,000 people all with the same issue, like one by one by one by one. How hard is that going to be? Can you see how easy it is for just a few people to change things just by being in harmony with their own desires and in harmony with truth and not being afraid? Right? But we don't do it, do we? Because all of us start getting afraid. And then when I get afraid, I renege. Right? In other words, let's say if we all made a pact today and then we had 1,000 people here and we all made a pact we weren't going to pay our taxes this year. The first person that gets under the attack, let's say they renege on because they're afraid. And then the next person gets attacked. And then they get all worried about what's going to happen, so they get afraid. Can you see how fear also affects us so much? But if we all dealt with our fears emotionally, we'd all stand firm, wouldn't we? And all of a sudden everything would be different. And that's how easy it is for everything to be different. It just means that each one of us needs to stand firm, which means that we need to get rid of in this soul all of these things inside of it. Right? We get rid of those things inside of it, there's something totally different inside of it now. Now we're able to stand firm for principles, for truth, for how we feel. If it's out of harmony with love, we don't do it. And if we all stay firm on that, the world changes very rapidly.